been to this point? What are you seeing from your team and raring to go here?
Well, we are. We're really excited. We've got a very veteran group and a group that really understands at a much different level than we have in the past. Our intensity has been really, really positive. I think we start with our pillars of toughness, togetherness, and find a way. And this team understands that at a much different level than we have in the past. Now, you have to still continue to do that each and every day and continue to get better, but we understand what the process looks like a lot more than we have in the past.
Every team, not every team, can get better during the year. You obviously did, but was there a moment where everything clicked there towards the end? I'm just wondering.
Right. I really believe when we came back from the Big Ten tournament and we had some time, we had about a week of practice before we knew what was happening next. And during that stretch, we took strides and we got a lot better at that point in time.
Yeah. What did you like? Any reason you saw, or just?
I think the way we practiced was probably a little bit different in the respect that, when you're in the heart of the Big Ten season, so much of what you do is prepping for your opponents and getting ready. And during that stretch, we didn't really know who our opponent would be. And so we really spent that time working on us. Good lesson for us moving forward. So something really positive for us to learn from.
It seems like the non-conference schedule especially is kind of ramped up for you
Right.
guys this year. How much of that was like a concerted effort, knowing that you have expectations
Right.
to make a tournament?
Well, absolutely. Very, very concerted effort to do that this year. In playing some premier opponents and premier events and premier places. So something that's really important for us to continue moving our program forward. And to get ready for Big Ten play. And Big Ten it's a gauntlet at that. And so we're excited about it, but we have work to do before we get to that point.
Have you guys discussed expectations much, or will you?
We have. The players have. I think when our season was done last year, came together and really put together what that looked like moving forward. And so they have very high expectations for our team and for themselves. And so we refer to that. Now our job as coaches is to help them learn what it looks like to reach those goals and what that standard of practice kind of looks like to get to that point in time. And I will say this, the one thing that is special about this team when you talk about what does it look like to be a veteran team is that when we put something in front of them, they do it quicker. They're sponges. They want to learn. They want to get better. And so that's something that is I think those aspirations help us kind of reach them and connect and get to the point where they understand that this is what it takes then.
Yeah. So last year, you don't make the tournament. But what I'm wondering is if there's a lot to be said for winning a tournament.
Right.
And that wasn't, I'm looking at 6 games or something like
Right.
that. And I'm wondering, in retrospect, do you think, well, maybe we win 2 in the NCAA tournament, but the experience we got is better, or are you just like, no, I would have rather get that?
Well, ultimately, you want to play in the big dance. That's a goal, and we didn't have that opportunity, so we had to make the best of the opportunity that we had. And I think that's also the maturity of this group, is that I think you can talk about embracing adversity all you want, right? But then you live it, and it's different. And this group, did that last year. They embraced it. We got better through it, and it's helping us right now.
You were talking, you have a veteran group.
Right.
Mara's back. Is there a challenge with the season that you had, the growth that you had, integrating her back in, or is it just she plugs and plays and you go?
She plugs and plays. She gets it. She fits right in. We had a practice yesterday that was our last preseason practice. But it was a practice that was similar to what our first practice is going to look like. And Mara really did a great job. I think she probably set we track wins during our practice and compete in almost every single one of our drills in some way, shape, or form, and you get wins for that. And I think Mara probably set our all-time wins record in practice yesterday. So, she's someone who she makes plays. And we talked about when we lost her, what that looked like, the impact that she makes, not only in her ability to score, her ability to shoot, her ability to pass, her ability to handle the ball, her ability to defend, her ability to lead, and it goes on and on. And so she's someone who I think just kind of picks up and helps us get better very, very quickly.
So she pretty much looks like she did before she got hurt.
I think she looks better because I think she looks stronger than she did. I think her not only her physical strength, but her awareness of different things in the game and how to make plays and getting to the rim. She's doing that at a higher level, and so I think our strength in the offseason overall as a team has really increased, and that helps us, because now you can you can hold your ground a little bit better because you have a little more, strength and the rules of physics. We can apply more pressure to the floor, so we can push off a little bit faster and all those kind of things.
How encouraged were you seeing players come back from the summer and winter and like the work that they had put in? Was it kind of up to expectations or exceeded, or where was that at?
Well, I think what's really special about this group is their desire to perform at a high level. But with that, yes, there are things that we have to do in practice at a high level, but there's a lot that you have to do outside of practice, whether that is physically get stronger, whether that's what your nutrition looks like, what your sleep looks like, what your basketball skills look like, honing in on developing all those type of things, your mindset. What are you doing to kind of to fill your mind, The one thing I remember from computer programming is GIGO. Good input is good output, leads to good output. So, and I think this group is doing the things that it takes at a much, much higher level. So very encouraged moving forward.
Is that kind of, a response of them being a more veteran group? Is it a little easier to have that trust? Because it sounds like there is a lot of trust that goes into, like, believing that they're going to go out, do that, and come back.
Well, you have to believe that there is a benefit to doing those things, and I think there's a part of being a more veteran group that, you understand the sands in your hourglass are going pretty quickly, and there's not that many left, and so there's an urgency to it, and I think at the same time things start sinking in at a different level, and all of a sudden you understand what playing present looks like and being in the precious present and what it looks like to really trust the process because you understand what the process looks like. You've been through it. So I think all of it there is a trust. There is a trust that goes into it.
You seen a bit about Maya a little bit in her growth, because at times last year she really kind of ran the floor and she's kind of ready for that next step.
I think Maya Battle is absolutely ready for the next step, and she's someone who I think in our practices when you watch her and we see her, she's someone who again can apply things a lot more quickly right now because she's, for whatever reason, she understands it at a different level. She's physically stronger and able to do more things. The game has slowed down for her. We talk about that a lot. When players are young, the game goes really fast for them, and and then they're hearing all these instructions, and then the game slows down. And the game it's a combination of all those things. The game is slowing down for her. So, and physically, again, I think she's a player who has gotten physically stronger, and that affects her ability to make more plays too.
And Mara, is she kind of being handled with kid gloves, or do you take the leash off and she's good to go?
Well, I think initially that was the case. Certainly as she's progressing back in, but right now she's full go.
You're awfully deep in the backcourt. Talking about Amaya, now you've got Mara, who has played point guard, and her name escapes me, but last year's leading scorer. She was like Mara, I thought last night. Her game was very much like it. What does that do for your flexibility and attacking?
Well, I think ultimately for us, we've got to be really connected and we've got to play together at a high level. And this group is understanding more of what that looks like. I think last year it was probably our trip out to California when we were trying to really figure out there's a connectivity. You take good shots on the offensive end, you have a much better chance of getting stops on the defensive end. You do a good job on the defensive end, it impacts your ability to score on the offensive end. And what does that really look like? And this team understands that at a much higher level. We had a possession yesterday in our workout where the ball moved better than I thought it moved all last year. And it was like, wow, that was fun. Now, with that being said, there were possessions where we did a really good job of that. This team trusts each other at a little higher level. I think they understand. They have the ability to make more plays too than we did in the past.
Talk about how your own mindset a little bit, because you have a very powerful personality. You took ownership right away. Where are you at mentally, because you own this program now?
That's a pretty loaded question. I'm not really sure where to go with that exactly, but I really feel at peace with the fact that this is a players program. And we talk a lot about the players being the leaders within the program, and being player-led. And the reality is, as coaches, then we kind of have to get out of their way and let them do that. And so we're at that stage where now they understand, and that's really probably the biggest thing, is that you can say that even in the past, but until they've been through it for long enough, it's hard for them to lead if they don't really know what it all entails. And this group understands it now, and then they can take it and they can plug it in. And I think there was a possession in practice yesterday where there was a defensive possession where I stopped and I turned to the baseline to say something to one of the players, and Grace Grahalski was already saying it to that player, and I thought, okay, all right, I'll just go over there and track something else. I'm not sure. So I think I would describe it more of at peace, but also challenged in the respect that we've got to continue to help this team reach this team in the way that they need to be, they need to be taught. And that's a little bit different than what we've done in the past. So we've kind of changed how we structure some of our practices too, and so that's fun. It's kind of rejuvenating at the same time.
More of a general question, but just Lynx are playing really good basketball right now. Gophers finished the season last season really strong. Have you noticed in your time here like a shift in like the interest in coming to Minnesota, like from a recruiting standpoints, or even in the city as a whole, the support behind women's basketball?
Well, I felt like from the beginning, that's why the Twin Cities, Minneapolis area, the University of Minnesota is something that's really, really special. We've seen it in the past within our women's basketball program when our program had success at the highest level and went to the Final Four, this place was packed. We've seen that. We saw with the one time in the history of the Big Ten women's basketball tournament that was sold out. It was right here in Minneapolis at the Target Center. So, we watched the Lynx last year. I think it was like 19,000 fans, during the finals game, and our team was at that game. And so the excitement that's around Lynx basketball, and they play great basketball. It's a lot of fun to watch them play. And so, and we watch a lot of their film clips, especially during the summer, to try to learn from how they do things and take those lessons. And whether that's an individual helping Mara Braun learn to protect the ball, or whether that's helping Amaya learn to get to, whatever the case is, or everyone as a whole, or our team defensively, we try to learn from them as much as we possibly can. So I think there's a lot of excitement. I'd tell our fans, get your tickets fast. The best seats are selling out. We have a great home schedule this year. We play, I think, the top 5 teams from the Big Ten last year in the standings at home this year. So if you want to watch great basketball, our tickets have an incredible value. So we hope you get your seats soon.
Talk to Cheryl much at all about how things are going, because she's just a wonderful personality.
Yeah, she does a fantastic job. I think more with Lindsay Whalen, communicate more with her at this point in time.
Can you talk about having, those 4 players that came here together and stayed? 2 of them will be here longer, but 2 won't. How does that feel? They've kind of been the base,
right,
kind of the rock of what you're doing. Do you feel like let's go out big now that we've still got all 4 of these? I know you have a lot of other good players.
Well, I think it's really, really important. You talk about Mara Braun, Amaya Battle, Nehemiah Holloway, and Mallory Heyer came here as a class together to leave their legacy at the University of Minnesota. And it's interesting because it hasn't been without challenges, it hasn't been without struggles, but the greatest successes in anything that you want to find come after some great struggles. And so this group is doing something really, really special. I would say we talk about our pillars: toughness, togetherness, find a way. Our toughness is getting better. And you think of toughness, well, diving on the floor, taking charges. Yes, we're getting better at those things. But for us, toughness is doing little things at a very high level. And that group has to be our leaders in doing that. There's a togetherness. There's something special about this group that's happening right now. Our togetherness is at a whole new level. And this mentality of find a way, when you watch us practice and you see us, there's some things that this team does to make some plays that I'm like, well, it wasn't really designed that way. But still, you can't give up, and you've got to find a way to accomplish the task at hand. And this group, that group has to be our leaders in doing that, and I think they're doing a tremendous job of it. Now, it doesn't mean that others don't have leadership roles, because they do. Every player on our team has a sphere of influence that they have to do their job at a really high level as well. Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.